Soul's Bridge podcast. I'm your host, Drew Amend. I'm a hypnotist and a certifiable geek when it comes to human consciousness, the nature of the universe, and what it means to be part of this very mysterious cosmos. In today's conversation, I get to sit down with Dr. Kim Eastis. She's a chiropractor, founder of the I Am One sexual abuse recovery movement. She may not necessarily be described as a psychic, but like a lot of people, she has highly intuitive moments and is able to access energy and information that's beyond the typical human experience. She's a friend and someone I've always been fascinated to talk with. And in today's podcast, we touch on hypnosis, out-of-body experiences, psychic and intuitive experiences, near-death experiences, just some of the many other ways that we can experience superconscious states of mind. And I think you'll find this conversation and discussion as fascinating as I do. So, with that, enjoy. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
And so it's such a pleasure to have you here to talk about some of this stuff because it's my favorite topic. And we're going to talk about superconscious states of mind and how we can experience those, how you and I have both experienced those things. You know, I'm a hypnotherapist, so I bring people into superconscious states of mind, you know, as a practice. And then also, but you kind of have another thing going on with you too. You're very intuitive.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Well, and by that I mean you're connected to superconsciousness in a way during waking states of mind, during normal states of mind.
Yes.
Not all the time.
No.
You have a thing you call
shower shit.
right.
Shower shit. Yes.
Things that come to you in the shower.
Yes.
And I think that's very interesting. And I want to get to the point where we can talk about shower shit.
Okay.
What comes to you in the shower? It's a very intuitive time for you where you're connecting to something. You're getting information during those periods of time. Mm-hmm. Those pieces of information also turn out to be like what? The
truths.
Truths. Not
Yes.
just truths, but so-and-so is going to come into my office today.
Yes.
And they do.
Yes.
So there's just little things about that.
Yes.
That are compelling.
Mm-hmm.
Compelling to point to, okay, where is that information coming from? It's why this whole topic is compelling to me.
Right.
Super states of consciousness point to something beyond our physical reality.
Mm-hmm.
And by that, so there's this definition of superstate or superconscious states of mind. And superconscious states of mind are really, it's a level of consciousness beyond our physical reality, where we are connecting to an energy or a consciousness beyond anything that can be measured inside the electromagnetic spectrum.
Right.
Right? These aren't things that we can measure by science, and so science dismisses them.
Yes.
And we understand that. They're scientists, and they're supposed to dismiss these things.
Although they're studying this more and more.
They are.
It's becoming more and more present because it's becoming more and more real. People are experiencing. Well,
there's a transmission of information. Mm-hmm. That transmission of information shows up in a way that we can measure. Mm-hmm. And we can talk about that too. We can't measure the energy on the other side necessarily or where it's coming from.
Yes.
But we can measure the information that comes through.
Yes.
And the information that comes through us a lot of the time, but it also comes through in a collective consciousness way. Mm-hmm. And there's examples of that, and we can talk about those moving forward. But this idea of a superconscious state of mind is something that's very important to me because in the course of my hypnotherapy practice, I didn't know all the things that I'd be getting into when I started hypnosis. Mm-hmm. You know, I thought I was getting into one thing, and what I discovered was that people are accessing something very, very tangible that is very beneficial to them. Mm-hmm. We're accessing information. Mm-hmm. We're accessing communication. Mm-hmm. We're accessing energies that have healed people in my sessions. Mm-hmm. I can't control that, and that's not like someone can sign up and say, "Oh, I want the healing session." Mm-hmm. I never know when it's going to happen.
Right.
I'm open to it happening. It doesn't happen all the time, and there's maybe reasons for that. But these energies come through in these superconscious states. But hypnosis is not the only way that this happens.
Right.
You are naturally intuitive. Some people would call that psychic on some level, not something you can control.
Right.
I know people who can just turn it on.
Right.
And maybe that's not what we're talking about with regard to you. But it's consistent with you in certain ways, like with the shower.
Right.
And that's kind of predictable, but you can't predict that it's going to be every shower event.
It's not every shower.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'll get a text from you about every 2 months. I got some shower shit. Hold on, here it comes.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, but yet
Which is great, and I really appreciate it.
On a different realm, my daughter is very intuitive, and stuff comes to her.
Jackie?
Yes, and she, it's weird, but she can tap into it. And she'll say something like, "Mom, what are you feeling?" And instantly my walls go up because I don't want her to know anything. And then I'll say something, "No, that's not really what you're feeling. Really, Mom, let's just play a game." And so she poses these games, and she's usually right. So for her, she gets bombarded almost all the time. Yeah. And her difficulty is learning to shut that off and just live normally. So there is that other realm of it also.
Okay, interesting. There is that realm. There is that thing. I don't want to talk about her. She came in for a session. I don't necessarily want to talk about that, I guess. Okay, so that said, so there are these superconscious states. There's lots of ways of looking behind. Can we call it a veil?
Right, you can call it a veil. Some people, the other side, a new dimension. I mean, it's just a level of, in our conscious state, which is now.
Yeah, right
now. Right here, current. Right. We are not really aware of the superconscious.
No, we're not aware of the superconscious. I'm not feeling anything right now in regard to superconscious. In fact, I typically don't. It's not my gift. And they say that you can work these things up within yourself, work on them, improve them. And I'm pretty sure I just haven't put the time in to do that to a level that's appreciable. There was a short period of time back in 2014 where I had 2 or 3 months where a lot of things were happening. And so I know what that experience is like. And I thought I was opening up to become that. And it scared me. And I asked it to go away. And I really, really regret that because it did.
So have you asked it to come back?
Yes. I've asked it many times and it has not come back.
So you aren't ready.
Right. So I'm not ready. And I always tell clients, you get what you're ready for and you get what you need.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get it when you aren't ready and you think, oh no, which is what happened to me. It scared me.
So what happened? When did you... All right, so there was a time in your life. Can we talk about trauma?
Sure.
Okay. So there was a time in your life when you were young.
Yes.
We'll say early elementary.
5, 6.
5, 6 years old. Yeah, that's very early elementary. Where there was some trauma.
Yes.
And you disassociated at that time?
If I did at that time, I didn't know it because it wasn't until I discovered this till I was in my 30s.
Right. So you blocked the memory.
Right. You block the memory, which is a defense mechanism, as we all know.
Common.
Yes. But then as I got to be more of a teenager, to a little bit of background, it was a result of going to the dentist and inappropriate contact behavior, that kind of thing. So I never went to the dentist because I didn't want to. That's how my child brain blocked that.
Yeah.
And then when I had to go, I was older and they would be doing their work, but I'm up here and I'm watching.
Well, what's that mean, up here?
Well, I didn't know at the time. Yes, it was very strange. It's like my body just floated out, and I was
well,
no
your
longer,
consciousness floated out of your body.
Right. And I was no longer the girl in the chair. I was just this being up here watching as the doctor and his assistant worked on whoever that was down there, which essentially was me.
How many years after was that?
Oh, that was probably, I had kids, so maybe 20 years afterwards.
Oh, wow. So you're an adult by this time.
Right.
You said, though, I'm not that little girl.
I was not that little girl. Yeah.
But you're an adult.
Right. Exactly. But that's how I think this person viewed that
Yeah, right,
person.
exactly,
Is
yeah.
because she was protecting the little
was
girl
protecting the
that
little
she has
girl.
protected all her life.
And it wasn't this 20-year-old self. It was your spirit, your consciousness.
Right.
And so, and that was one of the very first things that triggered me to start to seek out, was hearing a story of someone who was out of body, observed a conversation that happened several floors away, and then was able to repeat that back to people. They were in an ICU in a coma.
Wow.
And
Okay.
overheard this conversation, and I believed that that's what happened. I believed that story was true, and it made me really think that maybe we are a spirit, that our consciousness isn't just dependent on a brain and a body,
Right.
that our spirit or consciousness is more than that, or maybe it's a mix of these two things, right?
I would say that. I think there is an element, and I think that we are more than just a physical body, yes.
Yes.
I think that we are a spirit, a soul, call it what you want. But there is an element within us that is almost magical in a way.
Well, it's magical in the sense that it is not dependent on a physical universe to
Right.
do what it wants and needs to do.
Right. I did not tell myself to float out to protect me. No.
Right.
So,
exactly.
and it did it. There were other incidences as I continued to get older that it would happen, not really understanding what it was until much later.
Yeah.
And then I went through hypnosis, and we did.
But not with me. This is
Not
with
with
someone
you.
else.
This was my very first time of being hypnotized. It was in my office. We had a wellness center and a counselor, and we had an incident with my youngest daughter. And I ran and hid instead of going to the door to confront her predator, and sent my son to the door. He was 16 at the time. And so I went back to work and told the counselor, who was my friend, I said, something's not right. So we tried to do hypnosis, and he wanted me to lay in a recliner, which is very similar to a dentist chair.
Yes.
And I was not able to do that.
Yes.
So he couldn't get me to relax enough. So I said, can I go on the floor? And so there we were on the floor. And it came out in hypnosis what the trigger was.
Oh, wow.
And that's when I found out about my abuse.
So you were able to recall the memories of the dentist?
Yes. Now,
That must have been startling. Was it as visual like as it
yes.
gets? It was visual.
it was very visual, very, yes.
Were you experiencing it, like looking out of the eyes of the little girl, or were you observing these two people?
I was observing because I could see me walking down the hall to the dark room.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then because I rolled into a fetal position, he pulled me back out. He said there are elements sometimes that for the safety of me, we need to discuss stuff. He was a counselor, and so we came back out and we had another session, and I went in real easy.
Yeah.
And we went back a little bit and discovered all of this. Now he says he didn't go into a lot of detail of what happened.
Yeah. It's not really important to go
Yeah.
through the detail as much as it is what happened.
Right.
And the point is not to relive the trauma.
No, and that was his fear. He didn't want me to relive it. So
Right.
then years later, I moved back to Kansas, and I went to another hypnotist because at that moment I felt it was time to find out exactly what happened. Plus, I wanted to see, was I just making this shit up?
Right.
You know.
What is your conclusion?
I was not making it up. And it's never changed. The story is, or the memory is very consistent.
Yes.
With all of that.
Yes,
And
yes,
so
yes.
that was amazing. So.
And so then we do hypnosis.
Right.
You come to my office and you're concerned about the chair.
Yes.
And we're trying to figure out, should we put you on the floor? What do we need to do? But we talked.
Right.
We talked for about an hour.
Yes.
Prior to that.
And that's important.
It is important.
That you feel comfortable, yes.
Yes. Well, that it is standard with every session that I do is that you need to build trust.
Yes, it's trust.
And so in doing that, you go into hypnosis, and you discovered something about your mother.
I did. That was quite a fascinating.
Which was not your memory.
No.
Because before that was your memory.
Right.
And you experienced it like as an observer.
Yes.
Now, when this other thing came up with your mother, you experienced it first as the mother.
Yes.
And then you became the observer.
Yeah.
Well, tell about that.
Well, I found out that my mother and I were actually sisters, sister. We worked together.
Well, this was another session. This wasn't my session. This was another session. This didn't come up. This came up with the other session with the other person that you're getting ready to talk about.
Oh, that my mother and...
Because you're going to talk about an old profession, right?
Yes. Okay.
And that you work
okay
together.
For me to say that?
It's fine.
We
but
were
that didn't come
girls.
up in our session.
How was that? Yeah.
That came up in
Yes,
the session with the
right.
other Wichita person.
And the reason that I did the Wichita person, which I loved it, I call it mind surfing because it takes you right back to that moment to heal it. And the little girl in me that had been abused needed to be healed. I was having some issues. I couldn't wear turtleneck shirts. I couldn't wear necklaces. And so we went back in that to do that. And in that is when then came out the idea that my mother and I were...
in a previous life.
Yes, in a previous life, we were actually good friends and call girls. We were whores.
To put it
put it mildly. And it was just, I came out and she was like, do you realize all that? And I was like, wow. Which that was amazing.
See, right now, people are saying, oh, I don't know, this
Right.
past life,
Right.
stuff. And I got to say, and let me just, add to that, is that past life is a real deal. People... I started out in hypnosis doing past life. I studied past life. I did past life. What's interesting is that almost everybody will experience a past life with a good past life regression therapist or whatever. Everyone will experience a past life. And it's not just one life, but it's many.
Can be many, yes.
Can be many, 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 many. And some people say thousands.
Wow.
So it's something. And so is it a past life? Okay, we'll let the jury decide on is that a past life. But when you experience that in hypnosis, it's very visceral.
Yes.
It's like you're there.
Yes, absolutely.
You see it in detail, almost like you're looking at me right now, right? I mean,
Right.
the detail is so vivid,
Yes,
so
it is.
clear.
Yes.
It's almost also like an intuitive situation where you understand the nature of the situation without having to have all the background information.
Right. Yeah.
That's what psychic information is like. That things come to us almost like we understand the backstory here automatically.
Right. Well, and for me, I mean, and different people that have told me about that in past life regressions, because I've had other people do it. I was so amazed at how quickly you can heal stuff. So I would send some of my patients that were open to that idea. But the thing for me, you have
Healed like trauma.
Yes.
Yes.
That was fascinating. And that we do carry things forward. I mean, you've heard the stories and read the stories of the people that feel like they've been there before, they know this before.
Yeah. There's plenty of those. Yeah.
Yes.
Kids who knew that they were this person and they looked that person up and that person existed.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a grandson he's a junior now, but when he was a little boy, he knew more about World War I and II than... I mean, I looked at my son who his degree was in history. I said, does that not spook you a little bit? He says, Mom, it's eerie what this kid knows. And he wasn't even really able to read those books yet. It was freaky.
Yeah, yeah.
So...
Right. I have a cousin, or the husband of a cousin, who has a recurring dream of being in an airplane. It was a World War II pilot, and I think he's down in the ocean, and he's plane sinking, and he's trapped inside the canopy.
Oh, wow.
And he had that dream many, many, many times. I didn't know this, and I've heard this third person through my cousin, but he actually, I think he went to go visit he went and visited an area where planes went down in this part of the ocean, or saw those planes, or got in those planes and got in the canopy of that plane. And so when he did that, or had those experiences in this lifetime, he quit having those dreams.
See, that I think, I believe that we carry that, generational comes forward, and you have to heal those if it's a traumatic event.
People can bring trauma back from another life.
Yes.
Dr. Michael Newton, who wrote the book Journey of Souls, he wrote several books: Life Between Lives, Journey of Souls, Destiny of Souls, and he is a psychologist, PhD, had a regular, standard, straightforward therapy practice. Someone came into him because they had pain in his shoulder, and he wanted to relieve the pain in his shoulder. And the doctors couldn't figure it out. He figured it was psychosomatic, whatever. Go see a psychologist who does hypnosis. So in working with this client, he couldn't tell that he had injured himself in any previous, experience as a child or something like that. And in doing that, he couldn't isolate the event. He couldn't isolate the exact event. And when that happened, he said, well, go back to the event that caused this pain to happen in the first place. And the guy goes back into a past life.
Oh, wow.
He's a Civil War soldier. Well, Dr. Michael Newton happened to be an amateur Civil War history buff.
So he knew.
So he says, what's the insignia on your uniform? Who's your commanding officer? What field are you on? He had all these questions, and the guy was answering the questions.
Just like
that. He was answering the questions. And he went back and he examined the answers, and his conclusion was, where did that information come from?
Right.
A super state of consciousness,
yes,
right?
Exactly. Or something.
Yeah. He poked through and he found that information that was out there in the ether, and brought it back and was able to get past his pain.
Right. Isn't that amazing?
The doctor was intuitive enough to understand, okay, and then this pain, and then he resolved the pain. The guy's pain in his shoulder went away. But it started Dr. Newton on a path that ultimately completely changed his career. He started investigating this more, and over a short, I don't know how long it took him, but I would say probably in a relatively short period of time, he really converted his entire practice to this study.
Wow.
And not just past life experiences, but he really specialized in that gap between lives. When someone dies in one life and then following the soul back to its celestial home, and all the things that happened there, and all the events. And he details this in great detail. He talks about this in great detail. And what's interesting too is he did 7,000, I think. I may have that number wrong. It may be 5,000.
Right.
5,000 or 7,000 cases of past life regression, life between life hypnosis. And these people don't know each other from Adam. He's never written a book at this point, and they're all saying the same things. They're all experiencing or talking about a place. If you talk to 1,000 people about life on Earth, you would pull out some common details, wouldn't you?
Right.
Right. And not one experience is ever going to match another, but there's enough that you think these people are talking about the same place.
The same thing. Yeah. That's
right?
There's a commonality in it.
Yeah. And that's what strikes me about all of this is that there is a commonality to it. We can't measure these things. We can't test them in the electromagnetic spectrum. We can't prove these things. But what are the chances of all these experiences, no matter how you look beyond the veil, where we come up with the same answers, we come up with the same things? And that's what's so intriguing to me, because when I started this journey, I didn't believe in God.
I remember that.
I wanted to believe in God. And it wasn't that I was an atheist. I couldn't get myself to believe that there was something else. I'd never had an experience. That's what started the journey. But all right, back to your the hypnosis experience. So you're in a past life.
Right.
You're working with your friend who in this life was your mother. Okay, and then what?
And then we fast forwarded some, and it took me to a point where, gosh, I can still even see the whole thing. I'm going to say the 1920s maybe, and I am maybe
where?
in the 30s. It was in we weren't really sure of where it was at. It was in like a desert situation. And then,
Would this be America maybe, or
Oh yeah, it was America.
Okay.
It was like, I don't know. I sometimes think of, how they think of Kansas as Western Kansas, and we all have saloons and ride a horse, that type of thing.
Oh, we don't do that?
Well, some people do.
Some people do.
It was all fascinating because, I discovered that with my mother, which was just an amazing thing.
Yeah.
Which opened and when, it truly was just an amazing experience. And then I fast forwarded to another life and married a lawman and had lost a child and had a child. And then that was about it. But the most important thing was that we went back and we healed the little girl, and we did that through, is there anything that, the superconscious needs to tell Kim, the little girl. And I was so worried that as this was all going on, that because superconscious hadn't really spoke yet, it was just me kind of floating and doing, and I thought, oh my God, if Darth Vader comes out of me, I'm out of here.
I remember you saying that but the voice was a little weird.
It was very monotone like this. And in third person, she needs to.
Right. It was in third person, which is a common feature of superconscious talking through a client in hypnosis.
Right.
It becomes very third person.
Yes.
And what I want to just clarify for anyone listening or watching this, that what we're talking about is you basically talking on behalf, of what? Higher self? Superconsciousness?
Superconsciousness to me is a level of higher self, almost, I don't want to say godlike, but a very, very, very strong connection to the universal spirit, universal God, call it what you want.
And we've had those experiences in our sessions too.
Yes. Yes.
And but this time it was a little different in that it was third person talking about Kim.
Directed to the little girl.
Okay.
What she needed to do. She needs to do this. She's on the right track. She will do this. Which was, part of that whole thing of the I Am One and helping people that were sexually abused. And that opened up that door. And all these names coming through the Flint Hills were just flooding to me as I was listening to the radio.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is this? I mean, just name after name. And I turned my radio up because I didn't want to hear it. And it just kept coming. And so I got my phone out and I started just saying the names as they came. And slowly, those names, one by one, they were people that I knew. They were either patients, family members. And slowly, those people demonstrated or shared with me that they, too, had been abused.
So you're driving through the Flint Hills.
Yes.
And you're having an intuitive moment. Mm-hmm. You're feeling that connection.
Yeah.
Names are coming to you.
I didn't know what it was at the time.
Okay, so this was unique.
Oh,
this was the first time?
This was my first time I had that
wow.
I had no idea that this was.
And today you call that shower shit.
I call it shower shit today because I've come to understand what it is. And now it doesn't come so much in the Flint Hills anymore as much as it does in the shower. But I've also learned to understand what it is so I don't try and turn it off.
Right. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
I turned mine off.
Yeah, you shouldn't. You should leave it going.
I would have. I would today if it come back. But
well, I had my brother, he's a Christian, and he had said, you know what that is? And some people call it the Holy Spirit speaking to you, that type of thing. Maybe, okay, I just know that whatever it is, and I believe it to be God, a universal being, intelligence, whatever, that is giving me messages or leading me, if you will, in the way that things were supposed to go, and what progressed after that was just amazing. And so slowly I started trusting when these things would come, instead of going, is that me? am I making this shit up? Because there are times that I thought that I was, and I thought I'm crazy.
Yeah.
But then you get validation.
I think a lot of people who experience that do think they're crazy.
Yes.
They're actually treated by medicine. Medicine would call them crazy.
Right. Well, and
maybe sometimes it is crazy. I don't know.
Well, I'm sure there are elements of people that claim that and are crazy, but trust me, I've thought I was crazy. I really did.
By crazy, and by crazy, I mean there are clinical diagnoses that are consistent with these kind of symptomologies.
Right. That
we could say, okay, this person is, experiencing
something
found in the DSM-5.
Right. Well, and then I started thinking when I realized what this was, and these, I called them knowings. These knowings were given to me, and then they were validated.
But see, then when it becomes validated, is that crazy?
No, that was truth to me.
Exactly.
I mean, how
Truth.
do you deny that?
How do you deny it?
I don't.
It becomes unreasonable to deny it.
Well, it did. And slowly these patients, one by one, would come in and just had never told a soul. And they're sharing with me. Or
this
my
was the
family
beginning
members.
of a movement, wasn't it?
This was the beginning of a small movement. It was kind of before the Me Too and all that. Those had started, but it was more locally here.
Mm-hmm.
And so a friend and I, two friends, we started the I Am One, which is meaning 1 in 3 girls would be sexually molested by the time they were 18.
Yeah.
Anyway, that went forward. And again, I think I was used, and I think I were given tools, because I think that we are given tools if we're open to those.
Tools. I think that, and we had talked about this previously, that your trauma, there's, two things. One, trauma like that becomes a tool for healing for others.
Absolutely.
Trauma like that, when used in that way, then has a purpose.
Yes.
And when we can put purpose to trauma, it helps heal it.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So you started this thing about people who had common experiences.
Right.
Tell me more about that.
Well, and that was an amazing thing, because it just happened. It just evolved. I shared with my massage therapist in my office, who had a friend who I actually knew when she was a little girl in Topeka, Kansas. I mean, it was just a weird circle of events and how everything took in. And one by one, people off my list started showing up and telling stories of being abused, and maybe they'd never told a soul. We were kind of a gateway to that, and we would go out and give speeches, and our biggest thing was, and to healthcare people, what you will see when you experience this. Like for me, every time I went to the dentist, oh no, I'm freaking out. Well, why? Well, it would never cross their mind that maybe a person had been abused when they were a little girl.
But you disassociated every time you went back to the dentist.
Absolutely.
And that was the point I was trying to get to earlier. I lost the thread there. But yes, the dissociation, which is really kind of a technical term for this experience where you either come out of body or you turn off feeling in the body.
Right.
Some people come out of body.
Right.
Have a split personality is most people who have split personalities are never really in their body.
Right.
They experience themselves outside of their body at all times at various distances.
Right.
And so this is kind of a thing.
Yeah.
It's like an out-of-body experience, isn't it?
For me, it definitely was. But at the time when it was experiencing, I just thought, well, I blamed it on the meds for the something, or, I mean, like if I was at the dentist, they gave me a shot. Okay. So I'm a chiropractor. I don't take a lot of drugs. So I do have, I don't want to say reactions, but I respond very well to them. Yeah. So I thought, well, maybe they just gave me too much, or maybe this or that. But, it happened at times, when I was first married, and sexually we would be having sex, and I would disassociate out here.
Oh.
At the time, I didn't know why. I thought I'm crazy. But
did the pleasure go away when you were out here?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, well.
Yeah. And you have to understand that I didn't know it at the time that I had this abuse issue. And so there was this rigidness.
Did that create a problem in the marriage?
I don't know.
Did you tell him about it?
Yes, I did. Actually, that was my first husband, but I found out after we were married. After we were divorced.
But during the marriage, did you tell him about it?
Because I didn't know. Did I tell him about
that you came out?
No, because I had no idea what that was.
Well, you did the dentist and you did it there.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Well,
and there were episodes of where it was happening, but no, but when I did share with him, now we have been divorced. We're very good friends. I did share with him when I found out. He was one of the first people that I called because I wanted to know, was I weird? And
well, we don't have to go into the answer.
Well, I know. His answer was, that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so, there's another element. And so through all those experiences and the disassociation through the IM1, it opened a door. It was an avenue to be used as a tool to help all these other women.
Well,
and
not
girls
only that, but
and men.
It opened you up psychically, maybe? I mean, can we say that?
It opened a door of trying to understand, and that understanding then came to, okay.
Well, see, you have these psychic experiences, and the shower shit, and these moments where information comes through, knowings, truths, as you say, probably more than the common person would.
I'm learning that, yeah.
Do you think that could have been triggered by these dissociations?
Oh, absolutely.
That the trauma may have been led to some of this in some way?
Absolutely.
The connection I make with that is just I know people who had experiences of abuse, who are very intuitive people who frequently had disassociated through much of their adult life, but are also, are psychic. Well, more or less, they're psychic.
Right.
Not like in a medium who can just turn it on, turn it off necessarily, but just super intuitive. They experience things day in, day out. Do you experience things day in, day out?
No.
Okay.
No, it's not every day, and
you can't turn it on, turn it off.
No. I mean, I have read books on how to talk to your angels, how to talk to spirit guides, how to talk to, that kind of thing. And so I do try and do that. But that to me is more of I'm asking. And so how do I differentiate between what's me and what's them? That's tough for me when I do the asking. But when I'm in the shower and I'm just doing my thing and washing and all the stuff, here it comes. And I'm like, okay, that's not me because I'm not even thinking about that. I'm washing my hair. And it just starts in.
Does it come to you as a voice?
No. You know how you have thoughts,
but
you don't voice them? They're just there. That's how this is.
You don't hear words.
Well, of course it's words. Yeah, it comes in the
words.
form of words. But am I saying that some big booming voice is talking?
No, but you know it's inside.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If it's outside, somebody's in my house. But no,
you're not hearing voices, but you're hearing. But in your internal,
it's words.
It's words.
It's words.
Word
and
for
you know,
word.
yes, word for word. And at first I used to say, well, I need to get out and write that down because I won't remember when I get out.
Yeah.
And sure enough, at first I didn't. And then I started thinking, wow, this is coming more and more.
You need a shower board.
Well, that's what I've thought too. I do have a plaque I found at a thrift store that said "Angels Gather Here," and I put that above my shower. So I want to welcome them, so they'll talk whenever they want to. You know, sometimes I've gotten messages for you.
Yep, we talked about that.
I don't always open up to messages for others. A lot of time, it's more on me and what effect I might have on someone else. A lot of it has been patient stuff. So this, I did have a friend who was also a patient that his daughter had committed suicide and he struggled with that. Mm-hmm. And I got the message that I was to tell him, she's doing okay.
Wow.
Someday she'll explain.
That can really bring someone a lot of closure.
Right. And, I get stuff like that and I've learned, I can say, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And it's like, then that just kind of, I don't know, they disappear, so to speak. And then pretty soon here it comes again. So what I've learned through all of this, and this also is true of when I see patients and help them through their sexual abuse that they have shoved down so far, and that, okay, it's coming up.
Yeah.
And then something will trigger it, and then they shove it back down because that's what they know to do. This was kind of the same way in that the more that I shut it down, the more then the stuff was coming that, look, we want to work through you.
Yeah.
And
so they're asking to use you.
And I've learned that by me saying okay. Instead of fighting them.
Yeah, right.
And I think that's trust, because I had to trust what this was.
Trust what it was.
So I wasn't
it
crazy.
It didn't come easily, though, did it?
No.
It flew in the face of some of your previous
yes.
thoughts of what
absolutely.
God and everything was.
Yes, I was raised Methodist and
Yeah.
then went Free Will Baptist, and then a bit of Lutheran, and then I was kind of like you. I got way off track thinking, well, how can that even be real? All that kind of stuff, and then. It was never that I was a non-believer.
Right.
It's just that I didn't necessarily believe in the church and a preacher telling me stuff, because I felt, and I've always felt, that there was a connection that I could go straight upstairs or wherever it is. We always say up, but it might be down. But,
maybe it's in.
Yeah. I mean, once you open up to that, then I think you are going to be used as a vessel, which is what we're supposed to do anyway.
Yeah, and I think I'm open to an extent, because messages have come through you about me being used to do things. Right. And
they've been on track, right?
Yes, we've been on track.
Yes. See, and that's what's freaky is when they start manifesting.
This is a manifestation of that, actually. And this conversation, this podcast.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And when reality comes, it's kind of like, okay, keep going, Kim. I mean, they're real, whoever it is.
They're real.
So
they're real.
Yeah.
They are real. So back in 2014, I was drinking a lot, and I started. So I would take an afternoon nap, which is common with the hangover.
Sure.
And I was doing this frequently. And so one day I just got poked in the leg. And it just woke me up like that. And I felt 2 fingers poke me in the leg, like just hard. Got my attention. I'm like, what the heck was that? Nothing more, nothing less, nothing else. I mean, I didn't see anything, didn't hear anything. It just, what the hell was that? And then, but it kept happening. Every few days, I would get poked in a nap.
Not drunk.
No, never. Yeah. No, never drunk. Tired. Exhausted, usually. And over time, over the course of many, many months, even a couple of years, the pokes kept getting lighter and lighter, so light. They would just feel like you just like that. And I haven't had one in a long time, but they got a lot lighter, and they would wake me up. Sometimes I would wake up and see a vision. Oh. It happened
like
a few times.
A vision of what?
One time I woke up and had a vision of a thumb, like I was laying like you're me, and the thumb was pointing to the door. And I didn't see it. I saw it in my mind's eye, if that makes sense.
Right.
It wasn't a visual thing, but it was undeniable. And I got up, put on a robe, went downstairs. Trish was getting ready to go to work, and I was like, I think I got told to get up. She goes, okay. Don't know what that was about. Another time I woke up and I saw a vision of, we had just started Taekwondo, and I saw one of my instructors doing a form, and just how spiritual it was.
Oh, yes.
And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And one time I woke up and I saw, it wasn't a thumb this time, it was a finger pointing to my cell phone, and that undercurrent message was, check your email. Not check Facebook.
Right.
Check your email. And it was just and I don't see it, it's just
there.
In my mind it's there. I don't know how to explain that. So clear, undeniable. And I got up and I checked my email, and there was a very important email that I needed to respond to immediately, and it had to do with making a living, and a mistake I had made, and I had to get it corrected, and so I did, and I haven't had too many of those. This all happened most of it happened within a few months. Some of it trickled on, a little bit of it trickled on with the poking, trickled on for a couple of years, and but it kind of woke me up, and in a way because. I had been listening to near-death experiences, reading about them in books, watching them on YouTube, and they inspired me. They made me think about that girl that overheard the conversation.
Right.
And I was like, maybe there really is something to this. And I've always been a Christian, lived a Christian life, church, read the Bible studies, but there was that piece of me deep down inside that wasn't sure if any of it was real. I was a very much see it and believe it person.
Right.
I know. I think blessed are those who believe without seeing, or something like that. The Bible said. I'm not one of those people.
Right.
And I wanted to know that there is something there, that there is an afterlife, that we are a spirit, that we're not just animals like cows and monkeys, that we have a consciousness that lives on beyond. I've come to believe that I think that even cows and monkeys have a spirit that lives on.
They might. I've always said it'd be fun to come back as an animal or something like that. Where you don't have to really think much, just fly around, be whatever. Hope you don't get shot. But I don't want to be a duck, but there you talk about that belief afterlife. I also believe that there, or I think I've come to understand that there is an element of. Some people say afterlife. I just think that there's another dimension of understanding, and
but it doesn't it point to afterlife in some way?
Well, I think afterlife is the word itself.
It's kind of another animal in a way, though.
Yes,
isn't it? It's
to
beyond
me,
the psychic experience.
Yes.
It's really another animal.
And that's where people get hung up.
Okay.
Because the afterlife, I don't believe in that. I have one brother that believes and is a Christian, and then I have a brother that's a little bit atheist, and I don't know,
right.
And but yet, and then here's me in the middle, and they probably think I'm crazy, but I think the word afterlife boggles some people. I think they just can't grasp what it is.
They can't grasp it. Okay, so one of the things that that really pulled me into all this were near-death experiences. And not just near-death experiences, but very detailed books written about. There was a cardiologist. She's a cardiologist who was on a rafting trip down in South America, and they were kayaking. She gets caught under a waterfall and breaks her back, breaks other bones, is held under. She drowns and comes out of her body. She details this experience where she was met by people that came to greet her that were also not in a body, but people.
Yeah.
And that she had known them for eternities. And that and they felt very familiar to her. Didn't know them in this life or whatever,
right?
And she was ready to. They were there to get her, and she was going to go on. And her husband kept freaking out, calling to her, and repeatedly, and it was very distracting. She wanted to just go,
right?
And he kept begging that she stay, trying to save her, trying to resuscitate her, and she makes a choice to go back. And she goes back to the body, and she's lives, but she's badly broken. And in the middle of frickin' nowhere in South America, somehow they get an ambulance to this location. They put her in a thing. They drag her up to the ambulance. They take her to a hospital. It's a foreign country. Right. Hospital may be a generous,
right? A generous term.
A generous term in this circumstance. She somehow fakes not being broken like this, gets on an airplane.
Oh, to get back home.
To get back home. and then somehow survives that, is in an American hospital now, and recovers and remembers coming and going in spirit, back and forth in between. And it just was this continual thing in her healing process. And eventually she got to the place where she was just in her body again. And it was just an incredible journey, from a credible source, but not different than anyone who maybe you don't know whose background or what their motivations are. But you get a sense when someone's genuine in their experience. Also, like when a medium is reading a person,
right,
and talking about their grandmother, and the vase. It's okay that you broke the vase. I don't care about the vase.
Right.
And they absolutely just
Don't
break
have a
down in
clue.
Tears.
Yes.
How did you know that
Right. was
a thing in
Yes.
my life? And there's a show on I think it's an Amazon Prime, and it's called Seatbelt Psychic. He's not really psychic; he's a medium, but it's called Seatbelt Psychic. And if anyone's listening to this, watch that show. There's like 12 episodes.
Oh,
They're
wow.
all amazing. You will walk away from that convinced that it's real. Who's he talking to?
Right.
Where is he getting that information? Is he in a superconscious state of mind, or is he just kind of always a little connected to it? What piece of him is connected to that?
Right.
Is it his brain, or is it his spirit?
Spirit. I would say spirit.
I would say spirit.
Absolutely. When I was in high school, I had some surgery done, and I don't really remember the event, but there again in hypnosis, when we were going back to get to the little girl, to heal the little girl, this came very front and center when I was 17, and I was over here in Wichita. I grew up in Pratt. I was over here in Wichita, and I was having the surgery done, and the doctor came in. It was female surgery, and there was all this commotion, and I, again, floated out. But this time, there was a light, a round tube of light.
Wow.
It was just like...
So this was your near-death experience.
Yes.
Okay.
And so, well, I didn't know it at the time.
Right.
But then have
you
since
came
learned.
to understand that. You
Okay,
came to
so...
put it in those terms after you've heard some other stories.
Yes. And so when you get older, you learn so much more. That when you're young, you just think, what is that? And then all of a sudden...
Well, if you pay attention to any of this, you can learn so much.
Well, that's so true. Yeah.
It's not out there everywhere, but
No.
if you look for it, and in the age of information...
Oh. Well, yeah, if I'd have had the whatever, I would have been searching. But, again, I didn't find it out until in my 30s. And
Well, tell me about the two of light.
so, here I am going up. And I wasn't married at the time, but my boyfriend, I ended up marrying him, my high school sweetheart, he was calling my name. That's what made me think of it. No, it's Kim, come back. He wasn't in the room.
Oh,
he was,
okay.
But he was standing at the light.
He was.
Yes.
Wow.
And he was in a Superman shirt and his blue jeans, and we're talking 70s, so bell bottoms, and he had long hair. We were hippies. Anyway, it was so weird because I got almost, he said, it's not your time, Kim, go back. And I came back down.
And this was a person who's alive.
Alive today. Now,
he's telling you it's not your time, go back.
Right. He's not even in the operating room. No one is. He's out in the waiting room. So then I tell myself, was it just crazy? Was it just nuts? But the light was real. He had stepped in front of the light.
Everything that you said is very consistent with near-death experiences.
Really?
With the one thing
What's that?
is unique. That person was not already passed.
No, he was not.
He was not already passed. Well,
No.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
It does make that unique. And they're all unique in some way. But
Well, that might be. And, then I was turned on my side, and then I was leveled back out. And I can remember hearing the doctor said, can I start now? I have a time schedule. And then I don't remember anything else.
open mouth, insert scalpel.
So literally. When I came out of surgery, I was just sick as a dog, vomiting, just sick, just ill. And
Was it
years.
infection or what was it?
No, I just think it was all the whatever.
The drugs.
Yes,
You are
probably.
sensitive.
Yeah, I'm very sensitive.
Oh,
to
you
those.
probably had a reaction to the anesthesia.
Well, and that could be.
But nothing ever came up like,
I-
we almost lost you there.
Well, you know what? When I had that experience, the first thing I did was get on the phone and call my mother. Mother, you aren't going to believe this. And I had told
Oh, go ahead.
I had told her this was my very first hypnosis thing with Lindsay, or my daughter, and me finding out about my abuse.
The very first one.
Yes,
Okay.
very first one. Well, we're
We're going back to that.
Yeah,
now.
we're going to go back to that. And this is my first time I'd ever been hypnotized, so it was all brand new to me, and I didn't know any of that. And so I called my mother and said, Mother, you aren't going to believe this. Is there any chance? Because I didn't believe him. I didn't believe my hypnosis session.
You didn't believe in your hypnosis session?
I came out going, wow,
that's right.
Really?
Well, that's interesting, huh?
Yeah,
Well, all right.
yeah. Huh. And so I called my mother and I asked her, Mother, did they say anything about my surgery? Well, they came out and said you got really ill when you were in surgery, and but they didn't say anything bad. And I thought, well, no, they wouldn't say anything bad. Oh, we about lost your daughter.
I wonder if you flatlined.
Well, here I am today. So obviously, but it was strange. And then you talk about all that. And anyway.
Well, so when you were in the tunnel going towards this light, were there any feelings of unity, love, warmth?
Oh, it was absolute peace.
Peace. See, that's another super common feature.
And just, you didn't care. You were just floating. I was floating. Not this little person sitting out here watching, I was actually just going up. And it was like what I imagine or think today is a helium balloon as it just floats up, except you're going towards the light.
Yeah,
it was very strange. Yeah.
I had an experience the day that you and Jackie came into my office for hypnosis. So you came in, and then a week later, Jackie came in. And I had this experience the morning of that deal, and where I was laying in bed, and my eyes were closed. I was awake, but my eyes were closed, and there was this like dot, a pea-sized dot, just like, I'm like, what is that? And I started to look at it with my eyes closed. I could see this dot. So I was looking at this dot, and the dot looked like concentric rings just kind of going down like this. And it started to come toward me, almost like now I'm sort of going into this tunnel. And at the end of the tunnel is this little dancing light. And it's just kind of, it's just got a little, but it's a light. It's light. It's got a little purple, little green to it, and it's just this little dancing light. There's a feature on your phone that kind of looks like that. Anyway, on an iPhone. And it's just this little dancing light, and it's getting closer and closer. But I'm awake. I'm totally awake, but I can see it. And I kept getting the sense that my eyes were open. And so I kept squinting my eyes, and it was like, by the time it was over, I'm squinting so hard because I wanted
them open. You want to see? Yeah.
No, I don't want to open. I want to see with
what
my
it
eyes
is.
closed. And I had this feeling that my eyes were open because I could see.
Right.
And I just had the sensation that I kept squinting so hard anyway. I think it was so distracting, and then it just kind of started to fade away again. I'm like, oh, come back. I wanted to see.
Have you seen it again? Have
No.
you called it in again?
No, I can see the dot sometimes. If I think about the dot, I can bring the dot back in, but I can't go down that tunnel.
You can't go down to the tunnel to see what it is.
No, it's not hard for me to bring that dot back, though. It's not as vivid as it was, but I can still see it. If I just think about it, I can bring it back, but I can't go down the hole.
Wow. That's crazy.
I know it's just interesting.
It is amazing. You talk, and if we talk about afterlife or before life or near death, and I've told you this story about my mother, who 2 days before she died, or it was actually the night before, and she was comatose. We were making her comfortable from emphysema and COPD, and so she was basically just laying there with her eyes closed and her mouth open, But she was aware that we were all there and whatnot. And her
right.
sister, and she woke up and said, "How long before the girls get here?" Meaning her sisters, and they were in Greensburg. They were an hour and a half away. Anyway, she had woke up from this state. She sat straight up in bed, and we took turns as a family, and it was my brother's night, my oldest brother, and she sat straight up. Her eyes were wide open, and she said, "Oh, it's beautiful. I understand. Oh, it's just gorgeous." And Zon's like, "Mom, should I be writing this down?" And she said, "Yes, hurry up, get a pen." And she just kept going, "I totally understand. It's so beautiful, so beautiful." And so I went to get a pen and paper, and he goes, "Okay, I'm ready, Mom." And she laid back down, and she didn't die, but that was that.
No more conscious, waking conversation.
No. Her sisters came the next night, and she died 5 minutes after they had had their conversations and left.
We almost got to the place where we were talking about the hypnosis session that you, our first hypnosis session with you and I.
Uh-huh.
And we did a past life.
Right.
And you were, so you actually experienced a past life. This guy that liberated some women who were
yes,
being bought and
yes,
sold, who worked in a shipyard.
I
or
remember
something.
that. Yes,
Yeah, okay.
And I want to say this too about hypnosis that I've learned. You usually remember everything. I was worried going under that you're going to say dog and I'm going to start barking and I'm not going to remember. But you do as a
dog. See, you didn't start
wolf.
barking.
Yeah, I didn't. But, because people don't know and they see the people on TV that they say, "Oh, I can make them do all this stuff." You don't do that. And in hypnosis, when you come out, for the most part, you remember everything that happened. So go ahead.
Yes. With you, not everyone remembers everything, but with you, you do. You have a unique thing that happens when you go in hypnosis. When you and I do hypnosis, it's very unique. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But you had this past life.
Right.
And then you had what wasn't a past life, but you were able to see into a situation with your mother where she was hiding under a table. Do you remember this? And
Vaguely.
her father was around the table, and she was hiding from him. And you learned something about your mother.
I did learn that there was, and my aunt told me this story after my mother had passed away, that my mother was the oldest daughter, and my grandfather, when they were in high school, he believed in beating them, and he would take his belt off and beat them. And so they were fighting and arguing. And the next thing is Mom has the belt and said, "You will not hit me any longer."
This is a story that was told to you?
After my mother died.
Okay.
Yes.
Before hypnosis.
Right.
So you were clued in on some of this already. I wasn't aware of that. Okay. Was there another type of abuse with your mother and
the father? Not that I know
father or
of.
grandfather? I'm not sure which.
Not that I know of with my mother. Now, I asked my mother that once.
Well, she got very defensive.
Yes,
or
very
dismissive.
defensive, and her eyes started jittering. But the person that might have been under the table, I don't know if it was my mother. I can't remember that specific hypnosis. Was it my mother?
I've listened to it many times.
Because my aunt, they hid under the table when their dad came home, because he was so, and mother was the protector because she was the oldest, and she said, "We aren't going to take these beatings anymore." So,
but you always, like I said, you get what you need and you get what you're ready for,
right?
Or you get what you're ready for and you get what you need in that order. If you're not ready for it, you don't get it yet. But whatever you're ready for, you get what you need.
Right.
Okay. And but your mother and you had some contention because when you told her about your abuse,
right,
she was very dismissive.
Well,
and it really hurt you.
It did hurt me. She was dismissive because I could see, when we got. I was in New Mexico at the time, and she was in Kansas. And when we finally got together and could discuss it, she was a little bit dismissive because that was then questioning her motherhood. How would your mother send you to the dentist at 5 or 6 alone? Well, he was a family friend. He was a church member. He was a school board this. He was all that stuff. You're classic. And so...
Yeah, you're classic predator.
Right, exactly. And so she trusted him. He was also her high school softball coach. So he was an older gentleman. But anyway... when she said that she couldn't. At first, she was defensive because she couldn't believe. She thought maybe I was blaming her and her mothering skills. And how did this happen? Which is what you do. I've since learned that's what you do. But since all that transpired,
but it developed a certain enmity between the two of you, didn't it?
Yes, and then then she started not regressing but thinking, and I actually asked her at the time if she would consider doing some, regression to see, if maybe he did it to her. Because he would have been in a position of power with her.
I was under the impression after we talked about after your session that this was new information to you, that you learned that your mother had been abused, and that this was the reason. Because you also connected with her in that session. She came through.
Yes, I do remember that. Yes, yeah, I remember that because there was a suggestion by another person. I since learned that my mother and my aunt. And they were not related. They were by marriage. But that these two women were kind of the black sheep of the family because they did have this different way of thinking for the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, probably where we got some of that, as it comes down through. But that, in fact, there was a psychic, if you will, or an intuitive, if you will, that would do sessions. And so my mom had a session with her.
Oh, okay.
And this is before she had passed away. And the intuitive then came out and said, your mother didn't reveal that she was abused. And she said, I didn't ask directly because I don't like to lead them. I want them to come out on their own. But she says, I will tell you that there is probably some abuse. So that's probably then why our hypnosis session then cleared that up, because I never addressed that with my mother.
No, but you also mentioned in the session, or that your mother came through in the session, and that she that you were able to communicate with her, maybe not through words, but through telepathy, which is a common feature that happens in hypnosis, that people can do this. I've had it happen with many clients, that you can communicate with her. And I think you said that I said, is she happy? And she goes, you said, I think you said that she was happy that you understood. Does that ring a bell?
Yes, it's coming back. I'm trying to put it in the exact session, but I know I really shouldn't.
The session had some other features to it that made me go back and listen to it many times.
Right,
because some
that's
information
true.
came through for me.
Yeah, which I think we should talk about that, which was weird.
We could
if
talk
you
about
want
some
to.
of it.
But yeah, some of it. Well, and this is part of my realizing.
Other parts are pretty private.
Yeah, well, where I don't want to say that I'm a medium because I don't claim that at all, but that's kind of what happened.
So that is
strange.
What's unique about you. Well, in the sessions that we've had, you become so psychic, or
I don't call it psychic. I want to call it
channel.
Channel.
The first,
The
second session was you channeling. The first session was you had to check with the soul group to get answers.
Right.
Okay,
I remember
the
that.
soul circle.
The soul circle.
Because you could see the soul circle. This is your celestial family.
Right.
That you could see them.
Right.
And that they were all in a circle holding hands.
Yeah, it didn't really have faces.
But you could get a sense of them.
Yes.
And that you were all. Were you in the circle, holding hands with them, or observing them?
No, because I was just observing.
Okay.
And I remember that they would say they. I mean, I would say they. They say to,
Yes. And so I would ask a question, and you would say, let me see. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, apparently, there's this information.
Right.
And that they're sharing with me about this other thing and this thing. And and some of it had to do with me. Some of it had to do with my future. You saw my future.
Right.
Which was interesting. Part of this, but it wasn't this specifically. It was something else. And we don't have to go in.
Right, I get it. Okay.
Yeah, we don't have to go there because I don't want to. I don't know. I don't want to.
You don't want to go there.
No, well, I just don't want to.
It's personal.
It's personal.
Right.
But it was a cool future. And it had to do with my work and
Right.
what I would do and where that would lead and
Yes.
things like that, which was
And
really cool.
I can say that it's manifested in certain elements. I mean, you'll call me and say, "Oh man, you got to look at this, or you got to do this," because it's
Well, this podcast really wasn't part of that.
no, but it was an element of that.
Was it really? It was. Of that first session?
Of the whole big
'Cause
scenario thing.
We came
back
like a year and a half later.
Oh,
and did
yeah.
another session. And every time we've done it 3 times, twice since the first one, and each time you go back to the auditorium,
I do.
and I'm on the stage,
Right.
And that's all I'll say.
Yeah. Well, and you know what is weird, I think, is that there are little elements that keep popping up, but the story is the same, but yet it gets clearer. And it's almost like now I don't have to ask it. I don't go, okay, what does Soul Circle think? It just comes through.
It comes through. So
Right.
you feel like but you also are out of body when this happens.
Right.
And you feel like when you're talking, it's really them talking.
It is. It's not me because I'm over here.
You're on the floor.
I'm typically
sitting
over
there
here, yes.
watching.
Right.
And who I'm talking to,
And we've asked that.
is coming through.
Yeah, who am I talking to? You've asked that.
Yeah.
And the last time I remember that we did it, it wasn't really about hypnosis and anything that I needed to work on or whatever. We do hit on that some, but we just decided we were going to see what would come up. I mean, what
right.
messages?
So we had the first session. It wasn't a channeling thing necessarily. Although I do remember when you came out of there, when we came out of hypnosis that first time, you said, "Wow, that was some weird shit."
Well, it was.
And then you said, "I've never channeled before."
I hadn't.
But you kind of experienced as though it kind of was that a way.
Yeah.
Because I didn't get that impression during the session, but on session 2, 18 months later, a year and a half later, when was that? Was that right at the beginning of COVID? Mm-hmm.
Would have been March,
or April,
yeah.
somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. And you're right back there in the auditorium, and we're kind of reviewing some of that again. But then we just start talking.
Yeah.
And you described it as being on the floor. Mm-hmm. You're on the floor,
right?
And I'm now talking to, and you just said the light.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm like, can you be more specific?
Right.
No.
Well, and it would be fun to sometime, and we talked about this. Maybe try it while we're
doing a podcast.
Yeah, doing a podcast of it, just so people can see. Because there is an element of uncertainty within it. What are you going to say? What are you going to find out? Because some of those things you have to then deal with in life. I mean, here I had this whole big thing, but I understand now that was. I was being chosen, if you will, so that this whole other thing could develop. And again, back to the traumas, sometimes those things happen and you can either stay in them or you can grow from them and ask to
Right.
be used. Show me,
There's a quote from Remy that I love, and it's I can't say it exactly, but but the pain or the wounds are where the light comes in.
Oh, absolutely. The cracks. Yeah. Well, there's this element in because of my practice and what I've seen, and it's amazing to me. Women, especially, we store stuff and we store it very well, but how,
in the body.
Yes.
The body remembers.
Yes, the body does remember. It's a true thing.
Score.
Yes. Well, really. Well, women's brains keep score too.
Well, it's Bezel Vander Kolk, MD, wrote a book called "The Body Keeps a Score." It's very popular right now.
It's so true, and I have seen over and over and over in my 30 some years of practice now that those will manifest sometimes as ailments. And once they, kind of like the shoulder guy, once you clear that or discover what it is, it leaves.
It leaves, yeah.
But some people, and I did this for so many years, Drew, I hung on to my wounds. I'm a victim. I was abused. I carried that like a badge. Right here, man, pity poor me. And then it just all turned around through the I am one.
What was the metamorphosis like in that where you transcended victimhood into something that was useful?
I don't think that I did it. I think it was God given, and I think it was a path, because those names just started coming to me.
You started to give purpose, and it became a thing.
And so what I was doing, and that was the time that I went back with another hypnotist to the transgression and found out what happened. And so I was telling this girl who, I mean, we were in my office. We were all three friends, but and the massage therapist was massaging the other friend, and she said, "You need to come in and tell Jerry your story." Because she's, so she's trying to relax. And here I am telling her story about going back to regression and healing that, which was amazing through hypnosis. And then the massage therapist says, wait a minute. And then she relived an account that she had when she was 16.
In that very moment?
In that very moment. She goes, it gives me goosebumps still.
Oh, wow.
And she said, wait, Jerry, I can't finish this. And so Jerry said, it's okay. Let's talk about it, So it was something that happened when she was 16. She was basically raped, left, and had to go to the emergency room. It was so brutal. But she had stored that. And so Jerry got dressed. We came out to the reception room. It's in the evening. It's just the three of us. And we were like, wow, Kathy, do you realize what's just happened? And she was like, yeah, it's just crazy. But then that's how the I am one started. She said, well, I'm one. Jerry says, well, I'm one.
Two.
Yeah. So there were three of us. And, the statistics at that time has gotten better, thank goodness. But the statistics at that time were 1 in 3 girls or women will be abused by the time they're 18. Worldwide, not just here.
Right.
But there were 3 of us. There were 3 friends, and each of us had a story.
And it was an I am one.
That was kind of the beginning. That was the beginning.
Yeah.
And it was... That's how, to me, then all this other stuff that started coming, because my knowings didn't come prior to that.
Oh, wow.
No.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, I think that is significant.
And so for me...
That's going to form a pattern somehow.
Yeah. And that's when I started looking like, okay, and I remember the day I was out running, and I remember this moment that came into my brain that said, Dr. G... I felt strange compassion for him because the demons that he must face.
The dentist.
Yes.
Oh, thank God. Yeah. I mean, it's so important to forgive.
Well, it was a healing moment. And then, that was a turning thing.
We can see their humanity.
Yes.
And their struggle.
Yes.
And their pain.
Yes.
This wasn't just, it didn't happen in a vacuum, did it?
No.
No, but I mean, what's the likelihood that he was abused?
Probably great likelihood.
Probably a good likelihood.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
So, but you talk about all that and going back, but all those things that came to me, that's what kind of opened the door for me to go, wait a minute, why didn't I have this before? And I think that that's part of this superconscious higher power, that there is a purpose here.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel that the I am one thing within you has run its course?
Yes.
Okay.
It may come back out in time.
Right. Okay. It's good that you're open to that.
Yeah. I haven't shut it down totally. It's just that Jerry died of breast cancer. So that was a struggle. Okay. Kathy moved. Okay. But we would give speeches, and again, for me, in my own practice, I was, as my brother calls it, a safe haven, and people, and I say people because it wasn't just always women. It was men too that would come and say this. And, at first I was just shocked, and I would go home and say, you're not going to believe this. But then it started being so frequently that there's that trust element. And I just trusted that, okay, thank you. You're using me today.
Right.
And, maybe it'll come back out. I don't know.
Okay.
So.
You're a work in progress.
Yes, always.
Are we all?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. It is amazing.
So we had this hypnotic experience. Information about the future came out.
Yes.
Some personal information came through that has yet to be confirmed.
Right.
Okay. And then, but some other stuff too. I'm like, my dad was you could talk with my dad. My dad was communicating to you, who had passed. maybe a year earlier. Yeah, maybe a year or two earlier. My dad came through my very first past life regression hypnosis session. It was the first time I ever tried hypnosis because I studied the Dolores Cannon quantum healing hypnosis technique.
Yes.
I took her coursework. I did the level 1 certification, and oh my God, when I was doing that, when I was studying that course, I was having out of body experiences.
Really?
Yes. I had my very first out-of-body experience. So I'm trying, like, there was one particular day where I spent like 8-10 hours watching the videos, learning. I'm just opening up. The things that she was saying, I kind of believed it.
It kind of resonated with
It definitely
you? Yes.
resonated. But it was also, I had this element of, it's magic. It's unbelievable. And I'm like, that was the part that was hard to, but I believed her.
Right.
But we're talking about magic.
No, we're
Well,
talking about,
Yeah.
magical thinking, but
Because she's healing people in her sessions.
Right.
And they're getting information, and
It's magic because we don't understand it, our
Right,
brain,
it's
but
not-
yet this is where I believe your superconscious comes in, or your higher
just for
conscious
clarity,
comes in.
It's not magic. We're not witches.
No, we aren't.
But it's magic on the sense that it is
Not your everyday normal stuff.
physical, 3D,
Right.
everyday waking.
So let me ask you, when you had those moments, did you think that you were in a higher conscious level?
Okay, so what happened was that night after I had this 10, 12-hour, whatever it was, 8-10 hour session of just studying, I'm laying in bed. It's night. I'm getting ready, trying to fall asleep. And I just felt the bed shaking. And I thought, I wonder if we're having another one of
Might
those
be earthquake. Yeah, fracking.
It's like, okay, it's not going away. It's just staying there. And Trish was awake. I knew she was awake. And so I said, honey, is that an earthquake? And she's like, I don't feel anything. And I realized that the buzzing vibration was coming from within me.
Was it in you? Yes.
And I have since learned that this is a common feature of people who are awakening or getting ready to have an out-of-body experience.
Right.
Sometimes my brother would told me sometimes he wakes up and feels a vibration inside of him. And one time I finally shared with him what I thought that was.
How'd that go over?
He just, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
And so I'm realizing I'm having this weird sensation, and as I fall asleep, I'm facing towards the center of the bed, like I'm on my side facing in towards the center of the bed, and I have this sensation as I drift off to sleep that I'm rolling off the bed towards the nightstand table, and I catch myself like, put my hands down like, and I realize I'm not moving. And I was like, well, that's kind of weird. I wasn't even moving. Let me just go back to sleep. And it happens again.
Oh,
and I catch myself. I was like, I'm not moving. But it
feels like
absolutely feels like I'm rolling off the bed. And I thought, you know what? Let's just see what happens.
Let's go with it.
Let's go with it.
Yes.
And it does. It happens a third time. I go with it. And I roll off the bed. And I didn't hit the nightstand with my head like I thought I was going to. And I rolled off the bed, and I just rolled and rolled and rolled and fell and rolled and fell and fell and fell and rolled. And it was a pleasurable sensation. And I was falling and rolling and falling and rolling.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I remember it almost felt like I was rolling against something. And it made me feel excited, good. And I remember I stopped. And when I stopped, I was above a lake. And down on the lake were people on a raft. And they were having fun, playing in the sun, just having a good time. And I was like, man, I want to be down there. And I start digging through what felt like webbing, like wet webbing, and I could see through it kind of, and I was just getting ready to pull through it, and I think I thought of my body and it's just the second I thought of my body, I was back.
Stopped.
I felt myself sort of like come through the floor back up into my body.
Wow.
And I opened my eyes and I closed my eyes again, like trying to get back
Get back
to that.
there. Yeah.
Never happened.
Didn't happen.
Didn't happen.
Right.
So fast forward about a month or two, maybe 3 months, I decide that I'm going to go to a thing for this type. I kind of let it go. After I got my certification, I had one session with a client. It went textbook, like textbook, and I couldn't believe it worked. And my dad came through and told me he's around,
Yes.
which was weird. And because the guy I did this with is not like that world at all.
Right.
He just wanted to see what would happen.
Yes.
Oh my God, he fell hard.
Hello.
Oh, he was deep.
Welcome to my world.
And so but I didn't do it for a couple months. And I decided, well, I want to get back into it. And I decided to go to a meeting that was going to be up in St. Joe, Missouri. And it was Thursday, and I had to leave Friday to go because the thing was, I was going to go up there. It was started on Saturday. I wanted to go up on Friday, and said, Trish, would you mind if I go up there? No, go ahead and go. So on Friday, just before I was getting ready to go, I was going to go up that evening, probably leave around 5, get to my brother's, spend the night, and go up to the meeting. And so I laid down on the bed. I'm not even thinking really about anything necessarily. And I feel the vibration again. And I start to roll off the bed again. And I thought, well, I know what this is. So let me see what happens. I'm going to purposefully stop at the floor. I'll just set my intention to stop at the floor. And I roll out, and I did stop at the floor. And I thought, wow. Okay, I'm out. Now let's crawl around. I don't know why I didn't think to stand up.
Oh, yeah.
And I started to crawl, and I crawled on my hands and the knees, and the door was closed to the bedroom. And I thought, well, in this state, maybe I can just go right through the door. And at first, it gave me some resistance, but I kind of pushed through that, and I was able to go through the door. I crawled through the door. And then I went down the hallway, and I went downstairs on my hands and knees. And I'm crawling around on my hands and knees downstairs. And I remember finding a rubber band on the floor. And I thought, wow, when I wake up, I'm going to see if this rubber band is really here. And as soon as I thought, wake up, I kind of like look toward the upstairs, like where I'm sleeping, and immediately I go back to my body.
Wow.
And everyone always asks,
Was the rubber band there?
No.
Interesting.
Yeah. So Robert Monroe wrote 3 books on out-of-body experiences. Journeys Out of the Body, Ultimate Journey, and Far Journeys, Ultimate Journeys. He wrote 3 books, and I had, in between these 2 experiences, I had read the first book. So that's what gave me the idea to stop at the floor and to go through the door. Sometimes in this astral world, as he describes it, it's almost a mirror image, but there's little differences.
Really? Like what?
Like the rubber band.
Like the rubber band. It's there, but it's not there.
Well, maybe it was there. Maybe it will be there. Time is a little elusive.
That's true. That's true.
And so it maybe was there at one time. Or maybe someone has a memory of that rubber band and it stays there.
Right.
Or something. Right. So it's an interesting book. Robert Monroe, Journeys Out of the Body. I highly recommend the book.
Wow, I'll have to look at
really
that one.
changed my perspective on a lot of things.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I started having these, just kind of weird experiences in hypnosis, or because as a result of studying hypnosis, which always kind of gave me the feeling that I'm on track, that there is something here for me in this
realm. Yes.
When I was at that meeting, the night that I came home from that meeting, when I was at that meeting, half the women in this place are just super intuitive, half psychic people. And the work itself opens you up that way too.
Right.
And so they've all been doing this for years, and they're all, so I'm talking to these gals, and this gal says, you are just radiating so much energy. Says you must have a huge future with this somehow.
Wow.
And she looks down at this other gal. She goes, do you feel that? And she goes, oh yeah.
Are you not able to feel people?
No.
You can't feel people?
No.
So let me ask you this then.
Do you feel my energy now?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
But, not as much as some people, but yes. I mean, this is how I kind of tell people to kind of experience when they ask about it, or, wow, how do you do this? You've been around someone that you just really love to be around, and they lift you up and you're happy. And when you leave,
You're one
like,
of those people.
Thank you. You're so sweet. You're so sweet. He's paid to say that. No, not really. But then you've been around.
I think of you like family.
Yeah.
I really do.
Oh, well,
and I think
you.
it's the chiropractic connection,
chiropractic
because my
thing,
dad
yeah.
was a chiropractor.
Yes.
His parents were chiropractors.
Right. So I'm the only one. Well, no, I got a cousin in my family that's a chiropractor. But anyway, you've been around the people that are real negative, that you just drained, and you don't really. Well, who do you want? It's kind of the same thing. You feel those upbeat people. You want to be around them. That's kind of the same thing. People say, "How do you learn to do that?" I don't know that I learned to do that. And I haven't always been able to do that.
But, I mean, isn't that just, people's words have power. They lift you up or tear you down.
Well, that's so true. Your words you have to be careful with. But I also happen to
But
believe
just being
that.
around somebody who's positive, upbeat, they
yeah.
focus on the nice
Absolutely,
things.
yeah.
They're just kind of,
Right.
they're not dragging you down into
Right.
the misery all the time.
Oh, I
They're
know.
just-
I want
but
to slap those people.
That's not necessarily, everyone is
Goes through that,
goes
yes.
through that, but
Yeah.
it's not a
sensory thing.
feel my auric energy. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, but maybe you haven't. I mean, there have been some people that I could tell, whoa. Like, for example, I was, when the massage school here in Wichita was open, we would go get massages because you got to learn somewhere. And why not? They're cheap, So, but you had to grade the girls. And I had one girl one time that her energy was so good. And then and we aren't talking. It's just
I do
through
notice
their,
that, I'm a sucker for massage. I love massages, and some people, when they touch you, you can just feel like a transfer of
Right.
like really positive energy.
Right,
And
right.
Some people put their hands on you, and it's just dead.
It is. They
It's
need to
just-
stay in their day job. Those kind of people. That's what I think. I
I
think.
remember, just laying in bed next to your person, and if only your hand were touching, the small of their back as you lay there, you can feel a
Right.
transfer. It's
Right.
so palpable.
Well, you can do this with somebody. Put your hand just barely above mine. Don't touch me. Do you feel that? You don't. You're just, come on, Drew, feel something. You don't feel that? All right, turn it the other way then. Do you feel anything there? Boy, I do. You don't feel that? Okay. Well, he doesn't quite get it yet. Someday he will. But it is amazing stuff because you can feel that.
I think part of that though is I'm not ready for that.
Well, that's true. I
I'm
do
still
believe
in
that.
school.
Yes. But
And I think there's part of me that needs to not be that way while I do this thing.
well, that might be too. I happen to believe that we, everyone, for the most part, is given a certain gift. And it takes you a while to figure out what that is. And maybe you're on that path. You know how we say it's coming up. You're getting a little bit, but then this, your conscious brain then kind of just shoves it back down because, wait, I don't really want to talk about that. You find that a lot in today's world if we would talk to someone about this, what we're talking about right now, the superconscious, and they might think that we are, they don't really understand it, and they may not change that. So let's just shove it back down. Let's not talk about it.
It is something that I don't know quite how to. It's a little bit of an. If I'm going to be a licensed clinical therapist, which is what I'm in school for now, how are they going to feel about me being so woo-woo about? And woo-woo, I mean, I'd like to think that the way I approach things are, from a scientific perspective. And you're a person of science.
Yes, I am.
And we have to address these things a lot of talk about evidence-based practice. We don't go into things because we think they're going to work, or we don't.
Right.
We work with where the evidence leads us. EMDR, is it effective? Is there research to back up this technique, or other things, other techniques? And so we approach everything within psychotherapy, within that realm. With evidence. I think they're so strict about it because in the beginning it was such a hard thing to define.
Right.
Psychology.
Right.
That it lent itself to intuitive things, but that wasn't science. And so
Right.
it has really pushed hard away from those things and says, what do we know about the brain? What do we know about
science,
physiology,
it's
science,
backed. Yes.
neurology?
Yes.
And what do we know about trauma? How can we treat trauma? Is there
Right.
evidence to suggest that medications work? Is there evidence to suggest that cognitive behavioral therapy works?
Right.
What's the efficacy of these things? And so we have to be careful as professionals, what we lend ourselves to necessarily.
Absolutely.
And so hypnosis, is it effective? I think it's probably, personally, just from experience, I've never heard of anything like EMDR or other things that I can see more efficacy in hypnosis than what is described with other modalities.
Right.
And there is research, and there's not a lot. I wish there was more. But it's just so effective.
Yeah.
And I think that there is an aspect of hypnosis that is accepted by the mainstream.
Yes.
And that within the mainstream we can embrace a level of hypnosis.
Right.
Now, will people be able to talk to their dead relatives in hypnosis?
Maybe. Is that part of a therapy?
It happens.
Yeah. Is that part of a therapy?
I don't predict that it's going to happen.
Well,
does it happen? Yes,
that's a
it
therapy.
happens.
A part of, the way I look at it, the more you know, the better we do. And I kind of, that's how you have to approach that. And the more that you know, the more we know how the brain works. We know how past events stay stored within our body. And they've proven this. Didn't used to. They know that there's energy work. The guy that did the thing with the plants, and I mean, the plants were growing over here because of the, and it wasn't, they measured that. We have the capability to measure things now.
Right. The plants were reacting in
Yes.
ways to talk, to voice, to love.
Yes. I mean, that to me, because I do have a science brain, that's almost factual now. And so we know that this element is out there, and I think we are just that close of tapping into it.
I heard of these experiments where 2 vats of yogurt were next to each other, but not connected in any way. They're in close proximity. They put these electrodes into the yogurt. They kill one of the yogurts, all the bacterium or yeast or whatever's in there growing, and the other yogurt is reacting to it.
I would believe it. I believe it. I did it because I had read about energy work and the plants and whatnot and how the brain functions. And so I did a thing like that. I think I used apples and I put it in two baggies and split it in half and I spoke to one every day. I thought I was crazy.
Well, I don't think it's crazy. I think we look for what works.
Right.
But that's
it
what I
didn't
said.
deteriorate.
Sometimes
the other one did.
Right. Okay. So you spoke to it.
I did. Well, I showed it love. I love, I thought, gosh, Kim, you're really crazy. You're talking to a half an apple in a plastic baggie. They were the same. I mean, everything was the same. Everything was the same, except I showered this one with the love.
Yeah. There's a book written in the 70s by Patrick Flanagan, who is one of the most interesting personalities I've ever come across. He writes a book called The Power of the Pyramid, or Pyramid Power, I think was the name of the book. And it was kind of a big book in the 70s.
Right.
And basically it's this shape, the pyramid shape itself. If you take like a metal frame in the shape of a pyramid and place it over fruit, and set other fruit next to it of the same age, everything the same, and it's not under a pyramid, the pyramid fruit will last like 3 weeks longer while this is just rotting to death into a pile of mush. And this fruit, you could still eat it.
See, that's what we don't know. That's
what we
the
don't know.
unknown. Yeah, that's the absolute unknown. It is crazy how that. But I do believe that there's energy, and I happen to believe that is the universal God, the spirit.
There's something there. Curling
Yes.
and photography. You ever heard of that?
No.
So curling and photography, they can measure and see this energy from pyramids.
Yes. Oh,
using
from pyramids,
curling and
yes.
photography.
Okay.
I don't know exactly quite how curling and photography works, but life forms have this.
I've seen that. I've seen the energy they've measured from the life forms. A body standing there, one
body,
that's happy, one
a
that's
leaf.
sad, one yes.
And then they could remove the leaf, and the energy
And
is still
yes.
there. That
Yeah.
looks like a leaf.
Yeah.
It's weird.
So see, you can't. That's what makes me think that if we think we're all it right here, there's probably not.
But see, that's what I was afraid of in the beginning when this all got started with me. I'm checking my battery. We're good.
Okay.
We're good.
Okay.
Back when I was first beginning to get into all this, I was afraid that this was it. I was a reluctant atheist. I didn't want to be an atheist. I wanted to believe so bad. And
Yeah.
I remember driving in the car one time when I was a little boy, and I was my mom had this music box, and it had these pictures of angels on top of the music box. And every time I would look at that, I would think, I wished I believed in this stuff. It's just like Santa Claus to me.
Oh yeah.
And I knew there wasn't no Santa Claus. I always knew there was no Santa Claus. There was never a time I believed in Santa Claus. I wanted to believe in Santa Claus. And I wanted to believe in the angels too. And I remember driving. I was so young that I was standing on the front seat long before car seats or seat belts. I was standing on the front seat, and I told my mom, I don't believe in God. I asked her if you believe in God. She goes, yes, of course.
Yes, that's what moms are supposed to say.
That's what they're supposed to say.
Yes.
But I think she does. I think she did or does. And I said, I don't believe. I think she said something like, you will.
You will.
You will. Well, I did eventually. It took a lot. But 25, 30 years in Christian church going didn't remove that doubt. I mean, none of it did. Well, because it's
So
just
what was the day that turned you around? What was the day that said, or do you know that? Okay,
it
now
was those near-death experiences.
Near-death experiences.
I saw that one. I started watching them on YouTube, and I thought, oh my God,
yeah,
maybe this is real. This is a real deal. This is the first time I've really ever had that feeling that maybe this is real. I wish I could have an experience like that. Not that
don't wish for that. Yeah,
right.
please don't put that energy out there, because I do believe we manifest our thoughts.
Well, half the point would be coming back.
Yes.
But I just wanted to believe. I wanted to know. I didn't want to just believe. I wanted to know. And I think that's when the poking started. That I told you about. And I think that's when a lot of awakening, started. I had just like 3 months of like solid, near daily psychic experience. Like I remember one time I was laying in bed, and my wife had got up, gone to the bathroom, come back to bed, and in my mind I had one of these little visual flashes that I consider to be kind of psychic. It's had those earmarks of being psychic. I was experiencing those things then, and I saw her coming over the end of the bed, and I thought, well, that's weird. I mean, we have a. It's not comfortable to come over the end of the bed.
Yes, it's difficult. Yes, no, she's just
there's
going
a
to
bed
fly
frame,
over. Yes,
yes. And I thought, well, that's weird. And I thought, I wonder if that's what she really did. Maybe I really am psychic. So I said, did you just crawl? And I wasn't even looking at her. I had my head turned the other way. I said, did you just crawl in bed over the end of the bed frame? And she goes, yeah. And I said, why did you do that? She goes, Aubrey's over here on the floor.
Oh, so yes, that makes sense. Yeah, of course. There you are. See, you're intuitive. You don't even know it.
Well, I mean, so, so people say, okay, there's past life regression, or there's hypnosis, there's out of body experience, there's meditation, there's psychedelics. coming in and out of sleep for me has been the times that I've experienced, waking up and seeing the thumb, the finger pointing to the phone, the martial arts. I heard a voice once, just the moment I woke up, it said, "Dad died," which he hadn't, but I heard that voice.
Right.
So I know what a voice sounds like.
Right.
And it wasn't, I knew I didn't hear it.
Right.
It was
But
in
it
my
was
head.
there. Yeah.
It was in my head.
Yeah.
And never heard voices before or since. So I don't think I have a problem.
Well, maybe not. I have patients that will come in, and these knowings that I call them, I will be in the room with them, and it's just, you need to ask about this. And I don't call that like a doctoring skill, because
you need to ask about this.
Yeah,
that would come to you about this patient coming in that you had no idea was coming in.
Well, I knew they were coming in.
Okay.
Now there have been times in the morning that I patient crosses my mind, and sure enough, they come in that afternoon.
Yeah, that's another thing.
That, I don't know what you call that, but that has happened over and over.
So when you ask about the thing, is it a thing?
Yes. When I will say, you need to ask about this, and so I do, and sure enough, that is a thing. Now, I don't trust all my doctoring skills that way, but when they do come, I don't ignore them anymore like I used to, because I used to ignore it thinking that that's nuts.
But it becomes part of the palette information you're using as a doctor.
Yes, and I think that when you allow yourself to be open to these,
and you've learned to trust.
I have learned to trust them. I'm not always right.
It's not always.
I'm not always
maybe not
right.
everyone's always truthful either.
That's true. That there's a lot of them that I think, well, they aren't ready yet, and I understand that now.
But maybe that planted a seed.
You become a farmer, you plant a seed, and then you'd be amazed at the number that will come back later and say, oh, by the way, that happens a lot. But it is amazing that when you started, like when I first found out about my abuse in my middle 30s, my first couple of patients, not first couple, but I had 3 very distinct patients. One was a school teacher in her 50s, and she came in with mid-back pain. I think I've told you about these, but
some of them.
Yeah, mid-back pain and shoulder across here. And I thought, great, this will be easy, piece of cake, and I'm new out of school. And so I adjusted, and her mid-back pain went along. Her daughter was a medical doctor. She'd been everywhere else. We couldn't tell people in town that she was coming to me because that's voodoo. And
chiropractors are voodoo.
Yeah, back then, 30-some years ago. But
right.
Her story, she wanted to be an author, and she was writing a children's book about bugs, and she was a grasshopper, and she just starts crying. Well, they didn't teach me that in school. They didn't prepare me for that. And so I just hugged her and said, oh, I don't know. Her mid-back pain left, but her collarbone pain did not go away. And this was all kind of the lead up to my discovery of mine.
Remember this.
Remember that? Yeah. And she had been abused by her father, broke her collarbones as a very, very young girl. And once that all came out,
it went away.
She didn't have any problems whatsoever, and she wrote her book.
I
mean, it's just stories like that,
and you were being used.
I was being used, and I didn't know it. That's the part. But now I accept the being used.
You've learned to trust that.
I have.
Well, that is so interesting, and it rallies my faith.
It's out there.
It's out there.
It really is.
And it's unreasonable to deny it.
It is unreasonable. And, I've come to learn as I've gotten older that just because someone says it's a faith, be it Methodist, be it Lutheran, be it Buddhist, whatever, it's there.
Yeah.
You just have to find the thing that resonates with you. And when that resonates with you, you'll start seeing more and more of that, and then you trust that.
Well, when I was learning, I started learning. So I started buying books, and it didn't stop at near-death experiences.
Right.
And then it got into mediums. And mediums may or may not be, everything that they... I know a lot of people who are in hypnosis who have some they're very cautious about mediums, you know, because it may not be who you think it is or something like that.
Well,
Always. But it's undeniable that something's going on there. And the things that I was learning, seeing, and realizing weren't always lining up with my Christian faith, what my Christian faith would teach me,
Right.
or what my Christian faith would have me to believe.
right.
That atheists go to heaven. That people who deny a relationship with Christ are actually comforted and held by Christ in a near-death experience. Christ comes through sometimes. He comes through my sessions. He's healed people in my sessions. Things come into question about what we're taught in
Right.
modern church.
Absolutely.
And I just this whole idea of condemnation, I've never seen it on the other side.
No, it's not there. It doesn't
No,
exist
it
over
doesn't
there.
exist.
I don't believe it does.
I don't believe it does.
I
either.
don't believe hate exists over there. I don't believe evil exists wherever there is. But I believe that all those things that we just mentioned are man-made elements. And I believe that that is not how God intended us to be. But somehow, because we do have a free will, we do follow whatever someone says, because at an early age we are gullible. Of course there are those that aren't. They're spot on all the time and they got it. I also believe there are more and more of those people that are starting to be, if you want to call awakened, some people call it saved, some people call it whatever. You know, I do believe there's more of those happening, and I think that's why these doors are being opened more and more for your line of thinking as far as hypnosis, and this is an okay thing, and you know.
I don't know what where all hypnosis will lead me. I do believe it is a fantastic modem for healing, for both trauma and even physical healing.
Oh, absolutely.
And I don't understand that necessarily.
I do. It's energy work in a different sense.
Okay.
To me,
well, I agree that it's energy
Right.
work. That there's an energy there.
right. So let me ask you this: do you believe God can heal you?
Yes, but
Okay.
I believe that God that I bring the healing through me.
Oh,
That
absolutely.
it's me that does it.
Well, it's not you that does it.
It's me that invites it.
Yes.
But it's God's power.
Right. And that to me is, I've talked about tools. Tools are man-made and they are given to us to expand and to learn. You, with your hypnosis and the healing, you are the conduit that comes down and allows you to work. In chiropractic, there's a thing that's up, inside, and out, you know. That's kind of the same with hypnosis because that's what you're doing.
Well,
So-
it's probably the same source energy, whatever that we're working with. I mean, I'm sure it comes through differently. You're working with something that the sacrum and the spine and the which is also very connected to energy centers and,
Absolutely.
and other things
Absolutely.
that you know, an Eastern meets Western, Occidental meets
Right.
what's the Orient meets the Occidental, so I mean it's. I think that at some point, I'm hoping in the future that we can bridge these two things. That this is why the podcast is called Souls Bridge,
Absolutely.
because we're trying to, well, learn what we can and to bridge these things and bring them into an understanding that science can accept.
yeah.
So we don't know why gravity works, but we work with it every day.
Right.
We don't have to know how healing works, but we
Right.
can work with the energy and bring the healing through.
Right.
And people might want to then define that. You don't have to define it
You
to
don't.
use it.
You don't.
You don't
You
have to
have to-
say it's God. You don't have to
Right.
say it's anything.
No.
You could just work with it and use it and move on.
Right.
And I think the energy's okay with that.
I think so. I really do, because I think that they kind of, like us, they use us And the more we're open to being used as a vessel, the more they will use us in a certain area.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting, though, and I think you should hit on that on your soul's bridge and the title of that, and how in our hypnotic sessions we kept seeing a bridge. I kept saying there's a bridge.
We'll
there's
do
a
this
bridge.
again. We'll do it with a session, maybe. We'll
Okay.
come through.
Yeah,
We'll
see what happens. I don't know. That'll
light
be
has to
interesting
say.
see if it does it while we're being videoed. I don't know.
I think we can do it. We might have to put you in a more comfortable chair or something like that, but I think we can pull that off.
Okay, that would be fun.
And
See what happens.
But it's always interesting to talk about this stuff.
It is.
And it's interesting to talk about this stuff with someone who gets it, who understands, and I want to explore more about faith and more about religion and more about other aspects. I would like to talk with someone who has a very firm understanding of how these spiritual things are mentioned in the Bible, where they do come up.
You understand, though, that some don't believe that.
No, I do.
Right.
I do understand
So,
that. But I have to go by what I am seeing.
And maybe you're going to be a messenger.
Maybe.
There is that option.
I think the message, I think others have spoken about this. I think they'll continue to speak about it after me. It is the topic I like. It is what I've seen to be very compelled to gravitate towards. And but I'll give until another time, because we've hit the 2-hour mark.
Have we really?
I know.
That's
right?
just crazy. See, I love it. We could talk all night.
We could talk all night. But this has been absolutely wonderful.
It has been fun.
Right on. So with that, we'll just end.
Okay.